Hey, what's up? This is Ace, and welcome to part 2 of this projectile tutorial from my character creation tutorial. This is my Super Saiyan Teen Gohan character, and I will be showing you how to do a key blast using a helper instead of using the projectile code that we used in the previous video. We are going to be using a helper. So what you need to do is go into your animation file and make sure you have your key blast throw animation or your projectile throw animation. This applies to any other type of projectile attack. And make sure you have your actual projectile animation as well. I have my little key blast here with its red collision box, or technically yellow collision box, and I also have more animations for some cool effects for this key blast. I have this shockwave right here. The time is set to 1 on all of the frames, and the trans are set to A, and that's how it is for all the other effects I have here. And if you want to copy me exactly, the link to these effects will be down in the description below. And this is, a shockwave 1. This is shockwave 2. This is the first explosion, and this is the second explosion. And all of these effects, the time is 1 and the trans is A. So after you add all those animations, go to your CNS file and go down to the very end of your StateDev 250 code. And then I still have the code for the StateDev 300, but I am going to just get rid of it for now, as if it never existed. Alright, so first thing we're going to need to do is we are going to need to make a little area for this new block of code that we are going to create. So let's put down a semicolon and add some lines and make some space. After we do that, let's put another semicolon and name this projectile throw. Next, let's add some more space by pressing enter, and let's add some brackets. Inside of these brackets, let's put StateDev 300. Alright, and underneath StateDev 300, which I accidentally misspelled, let me fix that. There we go. Like that. Underneath StateDev 300, you want to put down type equals S, because this is going to be a standing state, and move type will be A, because since this is a projectile, the character will be attacking. And for the physics, that would also be S, because your character is standing. Alright, now after that, you could put down power add equals 0, so your character doesn't gain any power or anything like that. And then you could put CTRL, as in control, equals 0, and that's so that your character doesn't have control, or you don't have control over your character while they're in this state. And make sure you have an M equals, and then whatever animation your projectile throw is. Mine happens to be 300, as you can see in my animation file right here. Key blast throw is 300, just like that. Alright, so after you put that down, just click enter, add some more space, and then you are going to need to go to the very right and look for change state, which is right there. After you get change state right here, all you do is go to the right, double click on change state, and it should appear. Get rid of the last 3 lines of code, and make sure on control on the CTRL that equals 1, and the value equals 0, since this is a standing state. And then you want to get rid of that semicolon in front of trigger 1 and make trigger 1 equal anim type equals 0. And what this trigger does is that it triggers this block of code when your animation is over. So after animation 300 is over, this character will go into state 0, which if you look into the common one CNS file, state 0 is the standing state. Now when all that's done, make sure you're in between these codes and go to the right. And on the right, scroll down until you find helper and double click on helper, and this should pop up. Ignore these codes in the gray. Just exit out of that. And for the trigger 1, this is, the helper. If you don't know what a helper is, it's pretty much an object that you could define in greater detail, and give it hit defs and palette effects and Afterimages and stuff like that. And more specifically, this helper is going to be this projectile right here, the key blast. And this key blast is going to be triggered during the second frame of my animation. So for the trigger, I'm going to put anim ELEM equals 2, so that this helper will be triggered on frame 2. And for the helper type, just keep it normal. And for the name, what you do is you put in quotation marks the name of this helper. So I put down 2 quotation marks, and in between I am going to put key blast. Just like that. And for the ID, I'm going to put it as the same number as the state number that I'm going to put for this helper, and that's going to be 301 because the animation number for this projectile is 301. So for the ID, I'm going to put 301. Then for the state number, I'm going to put 301. For the position, it's similar to setting the position or the offset for a projectile. You are going to need to go to the left and click on offset view, that yellow ruler looking thing, and under beginning action number, under character, scroll down to your projectile throwing animation, which for me is 300, and go to your image beginning action number and scroll down to your actual projectile, which for me is 301. After you do that, make sure your frame on the character side is set to the actual frame where you're throwing the projectile, and just drag the projectile to your character's hand or whatever is throwing the projectile. And as you can see, according to my calculations, these coordinates indicate that the X value is 23 and the Y value is negative 21. And so I'm going to remember that, and I'm going to replace this position right here with that. So 23, negative 21. Negative 21. Just like that, position type will be player 1. Facing will be 1. Key control, keep it 0. Own PAL, let's change this to 1 so that the key blast has its own palette. And that's all you need for this code as of right now. And after you do this, what you are going to need to do is go to the end of the change state, make some more room, and you are going to need to make another little partition right here. So what I'm going to do is put a semicolon and put some more lines. And I'm going to click enter, and I'm going to name this one Key Blast Helper. After I do that, I'm going to put some brackets, and in those brackets, I'm going to put state def 301 because I'm going to define the state for this helper or this key blast. And for the type, I'm going to put type equals A because technically the key blast will be in the air. For the move type, I'm going to have that equal A, because technically a key blast is an attack. And for the physics, I'm going to have it equal N for neutral. Because if I put A, then gravity will act upon the key blast, and I do not want that to happen. So after I set that, I'm going to click enter again and make sure that anim equals 301. Alright, I wonder if I'm forgetting something. Nope, I think that's all you need for the helper. And then now, after you do that, go to the end of this and go to the right and search for destroy self. Double click on destroy self, get rid of the last two lines, and you should only have trigger 1 like this. And for trigger 1, you could put anim type equals 0, you could put time equals 50 or 100, it's totally up to you. But for me, right now, just to see if this helper works, I'm going to put trigger 1 equals time equals 0. And what destroy self does is that it destroys self. It destroys this helper once, you know, these parameters are met. So when time equals 100, this key blast will just destroy itself. So now let's go into the command file, and I still have the command for my key blast from the previous tutorial, so I'm going to just keep it like this, and I'm going to open up my character in MUGEN and see how it looks. I messed up because I accidentally put 201 instead of 301. Wow, okay. Now let's see what happens. Okay, cool. Now as you can see, when I press the button, the key blast appears, and it is just staying in place because there is no vel set, and I'm going to set that right now. But you will also notice that when I do the key blast is actually behind the hand, and I want to change that right now by going to the end of anim 301, and I'm going to put SPRPRIORITY, yeah, sprite priority equals 7, so that it's going to be on top of my character's hand. And I am going to add a vel set. So I'm going to make more room. I'm going to go to the right. I'm going to scroll all the way down, and I'm going to double click on vel set. I'm going to get rid of the 2 lines on the bottom and the Y value. And I'm going to change the X value to 2. And I'm going to have the trigger time equals 0. Alright, so I don't know if you noticed this, but if you followed my tutorial thus far, you'll see that in some of my attacks, I add a vel set, and usually, I put time equals, 5, or anim ELEM equals 2 or something like that. And what that means is that for those attacks, the vel set is moving my character just that one time, just during, that time or during that frame. When the physics equals N, that's different. So all I have to do is put vel set trigger 1 equals time equals 0, and the key blast will be moving at this constant rate the entire time. So let's see how that looks. As you can see, it moves gently through the character. Alright. And now, I like the way that looks, but I want it to speed up a little bit more, but I want it to move slow and then speed up progressively. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the right, and I'm going to double click on vel add, and I'm going to get rid of the last 3 lines, and I'm going to make x equal 1, and I'm going to make time is greater than or equal to 4. So what this does is that for every tick of time that is equal to or greater than 4, the velocity is going to be 1 is going to be added to the x velocity of the key blast. So as you can see, it goes super fast now. Looks kind of cool, but it is lacking effects. So let's add an effect by, first, let's organize this a little bit. Let's make this state 300, 1, and let's make this state 301. And I am going to put this in its own little group. I'm going to divide this a little bit by using lines so that it's a little organized. And under here, I'm going to just name this as movement, so that if I ever want to go back to the state and edit it, it'll be easy for me to see what I need to edit, and so on and so forth. And underneath that, I'm going to add another line like this, and in between those lines, I'm going to add a note saying effects. And this is where I'm going to add some effects to make it look a little bit better. So I'm going to go to the right, and I'm going to go to explode. Double click on that, and this should pop up. I'm going to change the state to 300, and I'm going to have the orb equal, or I'm going to have trigger 1 equal ANIM. No, actually, this is totally wrong. My bad. What I am actually going to do is copy this or just cut it and paste it into state def 300. My bad. Like so that I can add some effect to the hand when Gohan actually throws the key blast. And for the trigger 1 equals, I'm going to put animation element equals 2. Like that. For the animation I'm going to use first is the shockwave right here. Looks pretty dope. So that's 302. I'm going to add that right there for the animation. I'm going to add that right there for the ID. And let's find out the position by clicking on the offset view. Go down to frame 1, and I'm going to find animation 302, and it's right there. Now I'm going to align this like that. Looks pretty cool, but when I go through the animation, it's pretty big, so I'm going to change the scale. And I'm going to remember 20, -20. So first, I'm going to change the position to 20, -20. Now I'm going to change the scale to 0.5. I'm going to get rid of the last few lines of gray. And I'm going to change remove when get hit from 0 to 1. I'm going to change the own pal from 0 to 1 so that the explode has its own palette. I'm going to change the on top from 0 to 1 so that this effect is on top. And let's see what it looks like now. What happened? I spelled that wrong. I forgot the A. Alright, now let's see what happens. As you can see, it looks a lot better, but I am going to move it a little bit more up. So I'm going to make it -22 and a little bit more back. So I'm going to make it 19, -22. Alright, dope. Looks pretty cool. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another effect, but instead of using an explode, I'm going to use a helper. So I'm going to go to the right, I'm going to double click on helper. I'm going to change trigger 1 equals to animation element 2, and I'm going to name this shockwave. After I do that, I'm going to need to put down the ID and the state number for this shockwave, and it's going to be 303, the same animation as this. So we put 303 right there, 303 right there. Awesome. Now let's change the position. Let's look at the offset view. Check this animation out, and it looks super weird. I can't really position it very well, so I'm gonna have to guess and check. And the reason why I'm choosing this is because I am gonna show you how to turn it so that it looks pretty dope. As you can see right now, it's not in the right direction, but we're gonna change that because this is a helper and we could do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just leave the position as is for right now. I'm going to make the onPal equal 1. I'm going to get rid of all of the gray lines except for the first two so that I have size period x scale and size period y scale. And for the size period x scale, I'm going to put 0.5 because I want this animation to be a lot smaller. And I'm going to do the same for the size period y scale. Now after I do that, I'm going to go down below the key blast helper, and I'm going to make another partition right here. And underneath it, I'm going to name it shockwave helper. Shockwave helper. Now underneath that, I'm going to add some brackets. Like so. I'm going to make it state def 303 or 302. I think it's 303. I can't. Oh yeah, 303. All right, state def 303. The type equals A technically because it is in the air. The move type equals I for idle. The physics equals N for neutral, and let's add anim equals 303, and let's also add sprite priority, SPR priority equals 7. And now let's click enter, 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 and let's go to the right and find the destroy self, and let's define this trigger 1 as anim type equals 0, so that when this animation is over, it will just destroy itself. And right here, in between the state def and the destroy itself, or destroy self, I'm gonna go to the right and I'm gonna put angle draw on the very right. And with this angle draw, you could change the angle of your helper, and you could also, what happened here? Hold on. Yeah, that's weird. Alright, so with the angle draw, you could change the scale of your helper, and you could also change the angle of it. So I'm gonna change this to value 180, I think. Right? And then I'm going to change the trigger 1 to time equals 0. Time is greater than or equal to 0. And I'm going to have the scale 1.5 or 0.5 comma 0.5. Now let's see what happens. I don't know what's gonna happen, but let's see. All right. It wasn't 180. The value should be 90. All right, cool. Now it's the right side up. Now all we need to do is position it. So I want to say that maybe it is 10 forward and negative 20 up. 20 pixels up and 10 pixels to the right. That's a random guess. It's not too bad. Let's just make it a little further up by making it 2020. There we go, that looks pretty awesome. And that's the cool thing about helpers, they let you do more things with your explodes or projectiles, and adds an interesting dynamic to your character. And speaking of helpers, let's finish up this Ki Blast helper. We added vel sets to it, but we also need a hit def, and I want to change some other things with it. So let's go under the movements area of this helper, and let's add another one called hit def. And just for the sake of saving time, I'm going to just copy and paste the hit def from my standing light punch. So I'm going to just copy this and paste it. Let me update the list and paste this into state def 301. Just like that. So now this attack should be able to hit the opponent. I'm going to make another area. I'm going to click enter, and I'm going to make an effect section. Or not effect, more specifically, I'm going to make a hit spark section. Alright, I'm going to right click, or I'm going to press enter to make more room, and I'm going to go to the right and double click on explode. That's not the right one. Let me get rid of that by clicking on explode. Awesome. Now for the trigger of this explode, I want this to happen when the opponent gets hit by this Ki Blast. So the trigger for that is move hit equals 1. So 1 unit of time after this move hits, this explode will take place. And for this animation, I want it to be animation 304. And the ID 304, and position will be 00, 0 because this is going off the position of this helper, the Ki Blast. And I'm gonna make this, I'm gonna make it on top. So I'm gonna make it on top equal 1. I'm gonna keep the own pal equals 0 so that this explosion shares the same palette as the actual Ki Blast. I'm going to keep remove on get hit to 0 as well, and I'm going to get rid of these gray lines on the bottom. I think this explode is pretty big, so I am going to make it smaller. So I'm going to scale it down to 0.5. Like that. And also, I want this Ki Blast to destroy itself when it actually hits the opponent. So I'm gonna add another trigger, trigger 2, and I'm gonna have that equal move hit equals 1. Now let's see what it looks like. Awesome. It looks pretty dope. But I think I want to make it a little bit smaller, so I'm going to make it 0.35. And also, I'm going to make it so that this helper is around for a little bit longer and make it time equals 1000. And just in case it's a very big stage and the key blast is actually on the stage and shown for 1000 ticks of time, I'm gonna add another trigger to this explode up here. So underneath trigger 1, I'm gonna put trigger 2 equals time equals 1000, so that whenever this key blast is destroyed, this explosion will still take place. And also I want it to have a different effect for when you guard. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it down below. And you know what I'm going to replace this explode right here in the purple inside of the brackets to guard, so that I know which hit spark it is. And I'm going to change the state to 303. And I'm going to do the same on the first explode, but instead of calling it explode, I'm going to call it hit spark. Even though it is technically an explosion. So there we go, just like that. And on the bottom, I'm going to change the animation to 305. Like so. If I were to go into the animation, see what 305 looks like, it looks like that. It looks pretty cool. And just leave everything the same and see how it looks. Yeah, that did not work because I forgot to change the first trigger and get rid of the second trigger for the guard explode. My bad. Let me get rid of this. And what you write is move guarded. So move GUARDED. Move guarded equals 1. Now let's check it out. That's not supposed to happen. What happened? Trigger 1 equals move guarded. Alright, I forgot to get rid of the guard spark number, so I'm going to go into the hit def, and I'm going to type GUARDNO, or GUARDSPARKNO equals -1, so that's not there anymore. And now let's see what it looks like. What happened? Let me see. Well, first of all, I forgot to give this animation an action number. Alright, so it's cool that I finally settled that. Did I forget something here? Let's see. Let's check it out now. Alright. Alright, there's a couple things I want to change. First, I want to make this spark a lot smaller. So I'm going to change it to 0.25 for the X and the Y value. And I am going to figure out that guard spark thing. That's, I swear I know how to do, but apparently I forgot, so hold on. Alright, I know what I did wrong. I forgot the period. Now let's see if it works. Alright, that's awesome. Alright, just for a quick recap, in order to change the spark number for your guard, you need to go to your head def, and you need to input this line right here, guard period spark number equals -1, and also for the move guarded, you need to make sure you put this trigger so that this explode would occur when the move is guarded, which is pretty self-explanatory, but there you go. You could also make it a little bit versatile by changing the velocity to 1 for the X value so that it looks like it's still moving after the explosion takes place. So I'm going to do that for both of these explodes. I'm going to change the vel to equal 1, 0, like so. Now let's see what it looks like. As you can see, it moves a little bit and it looks cool. I really like the way that looks. Alright, so I'm going to save it. And one thing I want to experiment real quick is I want to... Oh yeah, I forgot. For the destroy self, I'm also going to put a destroy self for when the key blast is guarded against. So trigger 3 equals move guarded. Alright, awesome. So you have a trigger to destroy the key blast when it's been around for too long, and you have a trigger to destroy the key blast when it hits the opponent, and you have a trigger to destroy the key blast when it is guarded against, which is pretty dope. Now, another thing I want to try to experiment with is the palette effects. I'm going to see if I could change the palette effects of the key blast to make it look dope. So I'm going to go into templates. I'm going to just double click on fire and send it to editor real quick to see how it might look. I'm going to change trigger 1 to time equals 0. I'm going to change the time to equal 1000 because that's how long it's going to be around, and let's see how the key blast looks. It doesn't really make much of a difference. So I'm going to just get rid of it. And yeah, let's see if adding an Afterimage will look cool. Let me double click on Afterimage. Let me get rid of all this stuff. Or not all of this stuff, but I'm going to just leave time, length, palette color, palette bright, palette contrast, and time gap and frame gap. I'm going to get rid of all of these semicolons. And trigger 1 is going to be equal time equals 0. And for the time, I'm going to make time equal 20. And for the length, I'm going to put 5. And for the palette bright, I want this to be, what color do I want it to be? I want this to be yellow. So for the first number, I'm going to put 100. And for the next one, I'm going to put 100. And for the next one, I'm going to put 0. And I'm going to change the frame gap from 4 to 1. Now let's see how this after image looks. It looks kind of weird, so I'm gonna add trans equals add. Now let's see how the after image looks. Alright, that's pretty much how you do projectile using a helper. This is my process when doing a key blast for all of my Dragon Ball Z characters, or pretty much all of my characters that has a projectile attack. I usually use this method to make that happen. If you're curious as to how to do a blast, like a blast that stays in place, like a Kamehameha wave or something of that nature, all you would have to do is get rid of the vel set for the ski blast, and it's essentially the same thing. But if you want me to go into further detail about how to do Kamehameha wave, then maybe I'll do that for my next video. Anyways, this is Ace. Hopefully this video helped you out a lot. I stumbled a little bit because I forgot a couple things, but that happens and I figured it out, and hopefully it helped you. If it did, then awesome. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to have an amazing day. Peace.